Hi everyone, it's March 14th, 2024, and this is the weekly Backdrop Developer Meeting. We get together every week to talk about development and priorities for Backdrop CMS. We mostly have a focus on core, but we touch on anything dev related. My name is Nate Lampton. I'm Quick Sketch on the internet. I'm core committer and technical lead for the Backdrop project. We've got a nice little group of individuals here today. We'll go around the room and kind of do a quick introduction, your name, where you're from, and if there's anything, uh, backdrop related that you'd like to focus on today. We'll go ahead and start with Tim, and then we'll go to Luke.
Yep, my name is Tim Erickson. I'm in Deerwood, Minnesota, and I am getting ready to go to mid-camp next week. Luke. Oh, I'm sorry. You were gonna go ahead.
Go ahead, Luke, and then Joseph.
My name is Luke McCormick. I'm cell ear on all the relevant forums. I live in San Ramon, California. It's a gorgeous day today. Um, I I haven't been to one of these meetings for a few weeks, so I'm mostly going to be catching up. But I'm always interested in user interface and marketing issues. Maybe a little bit more about to say that. And I want to wish everyone a happy Pi Day.
I knew there was something special about today. Thanks, thanks, Luke. Joseph, and then we'll go to Eli.
I'm Joseph. I'm a developer from Las Vegas, Nevada, and a core committer. And yeah, I don't have anything in particular.
Thanks, Joseph. Eli, and then Izzy.
Hi, my name is Eli Lisick. I'm a developer with Giant Rabbit. I'm in San Diego, California, and I don't have anything in particular. I haven't been to one of these before, so I'm just listening in.
Yeah, welcome. Thanks, Eli, Izzy, and then Justin.
I'm a freelance developer in Vancouver, Canada. I use Drupal, WordPress, and Backdrop. Oh, in the other order, Backdrop, Drupal, and WordPress. And anyway, I'm here.
Thanks,
And
Izzy.
Justin.
Oh, I need to unmute. I'm Justin Kaiser. I'm in Muncie, Indiana. I'm a developer, Kaiser JB on the internet, and I will be at MedCamp next week heckling Tim.
That's great. All right, we're gonna have some good representation there at mid camp. I'm glad to hear you guys are going.
Irina's going to be there too.
Oh, excellent. Irina's worth like 5 or 6 people worth of representation.
She is.
She's probably gonna show up in like a full-on dragon outfit or something. Oh, that's great. Um, yeah, Irina Zax is a big proponent of Backdrop and an excellent ambassador. All right, in the world of Contrib, we have a new contributor this week. Alex Hobart has been through the approval process for joining the Contrib group. Thanks to him for porting the file hash module. Alex has also been active in the core queue, and it's been great. I committed one of his issues just earlier this week. So welcome, Alex, and thank you for your participation both in core and in Contrib. We also have some new projects that were released, have final releases this week for their initial releases, I should say. Paragraphs Aplenty and Entity Reference View Widget. Great to see those new projects come in. Tim, you also wanted to make an announcement about user group meetings, I think.
Sure. Well, I'll also announce Backdrop Live is in couple of weeks, April 4th and 5th. Registration is open. Sign up now. Please start submitting topics. But also, we do right before this meeting, we had our bi-weekly user group meeting, and today's topic was spam prevention. That was recorded, will be available on the Backdrop YouTube channel. Next, 2 weeks from now, Justin is going to share some of his experience with doing WordPress to Backdrop migrations. So come back in 2 weeks, an hour earlier than this, for that discussion. 4 weeks and 6 weeks out, we're still looking for topics. So please let us know if you have topic ideas, things you'd like to talk about or present about. Go ahead.
I don't know if it would be appropriate to interject a thought here because it's not really Backdrop Live. But one of the things about Backdrop Live I hear people talking about is how great it is that it's happening around the globe, around the clock. And since everyone has to sleep at some point, I was wondering if we shouldn't take some of these videos that are just amazing and just play them as a session. So if someone wants to watch, the midnight special, they can. But I don't know. I'm not, backdrop live until you drop.
Interesting idea. Let's think about that and talk about it. Okay.
Great. Okay, well, let's go ahead and shift into the main topics for today. Again, if anybody has anything that they've thought of in the last 10 minutes, feel free to interject or tack something onto the end because we're a little bit light on topics for today. But in news, we had a release this past week. Backdrop 127.1 was released, including a swath of bug fixes since 127 came out. 127, it feels so strange that, that was released January 15th. It feels so strange to me, the lack of follow-up issues regarding CKEditor 5. Like, it's been out there, and it's been the default editor on all new sites now. I'm going to pull up real quickly the telemetry on Backdrop Core and look at our CKEditor 5 usage. So, okay, so we've got 180 sites reporting telemetry information on CKEditor. 6% of sites are running both CKEditor 4 and 5 at the same time. 6% are running neither CKEditor 4 or 5. I'm guessing those are probably the tiny MCE users that are out there. And then 40% are running CKEditor 4 and 48% are running CKEditor 5. So at least based on people that are updating their sites and have telemetry enabled, already more sites are running CKEditor 5 than they are 4, which is awesome. And also, it's just great. The transition seems to have been really smooth from what I've seen. I'd love it if somebody corrected me and said, no, there's this particular issue that needs some work or attention, but I haven't had anything brought to my attention regarding major issues with CKEditor 5. And so I think that's just a real major victory for our transition from a pretty major difference from the old version of CKEditor to the new one.
Well, I think it's maybe a testament to our process this time because we had a contrib module that people could experiment with, and we actually got it released early enough, you got it committed early enough that people could test it out before we ever did the release. And I think that all helped because there definitely were issues that were coming up like late in the process, but it seems like they all came out early enough that, we got most of them.
Yeah. Izzy, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I think it is also a testament to the incredible work that you and others in the Backdrop community have done. When people ask, what does Backdrop offer? I mean, it is the polished D7, Drupal 7 of today. And it's thanks to your efforts. I mean, the rollout of that editor is great. Now you turn on the latest Drupal 7 and it says your editor doesn't exist anymore. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, yeah. Regarding just making Backdrop run, someone else flagged, Jen actually this week, that the like PHP 8.3, just keeping on top of things. She reported for her, at least her Drupal 10 sites can't run PHP 8.3 for some reason. There's some wide scale issue, I guess. Nor can Drupal 7 run PHP 8.3 for that matter. Backdrop runs great though. We're really ahead of that. So yeah, that is also just really, really fantastic. Yeah. So reinforcing what you're saying there, Izzy, that's what brought it to mind. Yeah, stability, flexibility, That's what we're going for here.
It reminds me a little bit about trains in England back in the days when steam engines and diesels were running. And there was the Flying Scotsman that used to run every day from London up to Edinburgh and back. And it was amazing to see that. And it's kind of like, you know, I mean, different kind of smoke with the backdrop dragon, but
I'm having a little bit of trouble following your analogy, but I love it. Oh, that's great. All right, let's see. Let's go on to other news or other issues, specific issues. So one thing that's pretty exciting for our core users, and sorry, this is really in the weeds for other people, but issue 6293, the layout upgrade path test. Everybody that has filed a pull request in the last year has probably had that test fail on them. And this issue appears to be fixed. 6293, the layout upgrade path had been experiencing random failures pretty frequently. There was about a 50% chance you were going to get a failure when you filed a pull request against core because of this test. And this fix was painfully easy, like like to our that the problem was caused by the Drupal 7 dashboard module. Drupal 7 dashboard module was installed by default and as part of our upgrade path existed in the list of installed modules when upgrading from Drupal 7. Well, quite some time ago, Backdrop introduced a new dashboard module, also called Dashboard, that was based on layout module. And the problem is simply that Drupal 7's dashboard module was installed and still running, and during the upgrade, the new dashboard module thought that it should be enabled, but it was dependent upon layouts, which weren't enabled yet because layout is a new module. And so dashboard module would crash the upgrade because it would start trying to execute before layout module was even turned on. The fix was simply to make dashboard module declare dependency on layout module, and that fixed it. So, yay, I guess. But really awesome to have that long-standing issue fixed. I've seen half a dozen pull requests come through, all with 100% pass rates now. Really great to finally be able to trust our testing platform again. Okay. Well, that's one exciting issue. There's a couple of config-related issues. 128, the next minor version of Backdrop, is not too far away. It comes out May 15th, and per our normal release cycles, we have all of March and then all of April to get in new features, and then feature freeze will be around May 1st. So big issues for the 128 release. I think this making config storage swappable is probably one of our more exciting issues and one of the ones that's most likely to be completed around then. The issue is 2277. We haven't really had any big progress updates on this issue. It's still really close, but we're stuck on getting, again, tests. Tests are the big factor here. That the new functionality works. It saves config into the database instead of into flat files. This could be really helpful for some environments like Pantheon, where the file system isn't as fast or isn't quite as optimized as the database is. But we're stuck not being able to run test coverage when the site is using database config. So we're still kind of working out this particular problem. There's pull request, and that's that just needs some work to figure that part out. Let's see. Also related to config.
Do we have a burn down list or anything like that for how many tests we need for that?
We don't need any new tests. We just need to get the current tests running. That's the tricky thing. So the pull request right now, what it does is it adds another test execution process to GitHub Actions. So GitHub Actions right now runs a matrix of 3 sets of tests. It splits our tests into thirds so that it runs faster and runs in parallel, and it runs it against PHP 5, 7, and 8. And what we'd like to do is add an additional run of the tests to run the tests using database config instead of file-based config. And the initial work right now, we're just trying to run the config subset of tests and just on the newest version of PHP. So we're not going to rerun all of the tests on the file-based or on the database-based config. We're just going to run the config-based ones and only on one version of PHP for starters. So it doesn't need new tests, it just needs to run the existing tests and make sure that config works, whether it's file-based or whether it's database-based. And the pull request already sets that up. It's just that they're not running.
All right, so it's not that the tests are wrong or not written, and it's not that the configuration still needs to be in place, but they're actually not passing the tests.
No, it's that the tests aren't running correctly. So there's something with the way that simple test is set up. We need to fix the actual process of running tests.
That's one of those things, though. When we figure that out, that suddenly they all work. Like it'll be
Right.
oh, that'll be great. All right.
Yeah, you have anything to add, Joseph?
No, I'm trying to run them right now on my local environment, and it's just saying failed the right config, which is not exactly the most useful error message ever.
Yeah. Let's see. It's also yeah, also related to config. We have this new issue. Not new issue. I'm gonna start sharing my screen to demonstrate this one because it's a little tricky to describe. So this is initially filed quite some time ago by Greg, asking about checkboxes and radio buttons. That when radio boxes or when checkboxes are saved, they usually end up in the config like this, where you have like this is the key, this is the value, and if you checked, this is checking the values 1 and 2, but not 3, then 3 is saved as 0, and these other 2 are saved as string values. This is what he wants, actually, is that it would be 1, 1, 0. Actually, I'm not even sure this is correct. I would probably say what should be in here is setting 1, setting 2 as array items and not have 1s or 0s. So anyway, this goes on about basically what is being saved in config and how it's not ideal. And maybe that this might not have been perfectly aligned because we talked about this last week during the dev meeting, and I filed kind of an experimental pull request to partially solve this problem, but it doesn't change form API. It changes how config works a little bit. And so what this does is it introduces a new key into hook config info. It's called enforce data types. And I followed a follow-up comment here saying this should probably be called strict types instead, because that's what PHP refers to it as. But this enforce data types setting in hook config info makes it so that if you write a config value that doesn't match the default config, then it casts the value to the data type of the default config. So if this is hook or if this is a admin bar settings.json file, and if the default one has Boolean values for margin top and position fixed, but you write an integer or a string value to that key, it gets cast to match the default config file. Does that kind of make sense? This change set of changes is a little bit bigger here, but it includes the set of changes for admin bar just for demonstration here. So enforce data types is set to true in config info, and then the default settings file, these margin top and position fixed, which are Boolean values, are changed to be true Booleans instead of integers. And now every time this admin bar settings.json file gets written, if margin top is set to a string or a integer, it gets cast to be a Boolean value instead on save. Does that make sense?
So we're using the original file to essentially declare types.
Yep, that's
Okay.
right. Yeah, it's kind of like a lightweight version of the schema files that Drupal uses for its config, where you have a separate file that defines the schema, and instead this just takes the data types of the existing file and then applies those to the config every time the config is written.
Mhm.
It's not a comprehensive solution because it doesn't solve like nested values. Like if you have an array of keys like this, I guess maybe it could, like we could enforce, this is a good example actually, this components array where this is a set of checkboxes in the form, and what the values that come back are actually like the key colon a string, which is the same, or the key colon 0, like in the original report like this, where this is what comes back from form API. And we could, in fact, copy, we could analyze if it's an unindexed array like this and enforce a set of checkboxes coming back to be made to be an unindexed array instead of being value colon 0. Yeah, I guess that could be done. So anyway, that's fun issue, I think. But I haven't received any feedback on it. So if anybody thinks this is a good or a bad idea or would like to review it technically, your feedback would be welcome. Okay, let's see here. We also have Izzy raised an issue. Do you want to talk about this issue a little bit, Izzy?
Yeah,
6421.
yeah, that's the table left join issue that's just been brought into Backdrop. And I was doing some rechecking because that's been one that we've used on Drupal 7 for quite a long time. I can't find the issue, you'll know right away, but if I just copy the URL of the patch that we've been using, it's got the issue number, and so that would be the node number and the patch given in it. But we were using that without any consequences, and it's supposed to make things faster and more secure. And now I see that in the it's a long one. I don't know how many entries there were, but it may have gone on for a while. But
oh no, this isn't bad. 36 comments.
No, that isn't bad. I don't know why I thought it was taking forever. Maybe because it never got in until late. I don't know. I don't know if it's in the latest version. I haven't had a chance to double check when it got committed. It isn't. It's still open. Oh, Drupal's 10. Yes. So
yeah, maybe it's the Drupal 10 issue. Yeah.
Yeah, so now it's another time when Backdrop can show it's running neck and neck with Drupal 10. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, if this will load. There we go. Okay, and then there's a Drupal 7 issue. Okay, so this is just closed a couple weeks ago, got committed. Yeah, 546 comments.
Yeah, I thought it was taking a while. But like I say, that patch seems to have applied. I had to go back to when, and I don't know how it compares to what's in the backdrop issue. I just saw it when I was looking at what's been popping up more recently updated. So I just thought it's new to me and it might be interesting to others as well.
Yeah, that's nice. Thanks for bringing this up. Yeah, just opened a couple days ago. Great. Okay, yeah, we'll take a look at this. Great. Awesome.
Yeah, I subscribe.
New contributor too, Eric. This is their first issue. Okay.
I mentioned, Nate, this using config for color module palettes, since we're talking about config today. And this issue's been active this week. Joseph, I know you haven't commented on it recently, but you might be the most familiar with it. Can you say anything about this issue?
Hang on. What's the issue number
It's
again?
2554. And it seems like Doc Wilmot is looking for feedback on it. He posted some updates this week.
I have not looked at it recently.
Yeah, your last comment was a year or two ago. I'm just wondering if it just simply moves what's in the database into config, or if it makes any other improvements. For example, the one of the big weird things about color module is that you can't use the same color twice. So you have to create these artificially, and I don't know if this helps solve that. Probably not, I'm guessing. Because I don't think this affects the way the module works. It just changes where the data is being stored, right?
Yeah.
That way.
Well, last time I looked at it, he's probably changed this, but last time what it did is it essentially read in your color.inc
Mhm.
file, like read the data in, and then took that and put it in a config file. And then afterwards used that.
Okay, maybe I have to take a look at it myself.
At the time, let's see. I'm looking through the comments right now. At the time, I think my concern with it was that so because of how it was working at the time, it would only read the color.inc file once and then it would ignore it after that. And so if you tried to, like if a theme developer tried to add a new color setting, it wouldn't show up in the UI because it only read it once. So, and we also did not at the time have any way for themes to update config. So there was no way for the theme to like notify the system that the config had changed at all. I don't remember if the other issues related to that have been merged or not.
Have we, that's changed, hasn't it? Now themes can use config, or is that another issue in progress?
I don't know.
No, that was completed in 127 actually.
Okay.
So yeah,
okay.
themes are using config now.
Which is why probably this one's now getting some action, huh?
Well, yeah. So I guess if the theme can provide a config folder with that in it, and then, well, you'd still need an update hook unless we checked the config every time it was. Oh,
Yeah, that's fine if that's what it takes. I don't think this has one. No.
We might just need special handling color modules for keys.
Okay. Am I still sharing my screen?
No, you said.
Oh, okay, good. I have this issue sometimes with Zoom that it doesn't think that I've stopped sharing, but I have.
Right. Right.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Do we have any other topics or things people would like to bring up for today? Because we've run through all of the items already.
Well,
There's a couple of things coming down the pipeline. I don't know if that counts as here.
Yeah, go ahead. What sort of things?
Well, we got two entries that I haven't actually forwarded on, but I'm gonna send them through. And they're kind of both off sort of the kind of standard pipeline intended targets. Well, one's an agency that has like a bunch of sites, and that's actually probably it's probably good stuff in there. They may end up splitting it up between providers. And then the other one just came yesterday, is like super short. So I'm a little suspicious of it, but it looks legit. Look, you know, it's a 777 site sitting on the other side. So I'll forward it along.
Okay, you just mean your personal pipeline has got some exciting things coming together for
No,
work.
no. I mean the Drupal to Backdrop pipeline project.
the migration pipeline.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay.
You get to from the homepage if you follow down, you know, the path. And which, you know, we've had some mailings going out that actually have a link to it that might be turning up some leads there.
If you want to talk about that, or need, yeah, I wouldn't mind checking in with about that, Luke, later. Izzy has his hand up. Is that new? Is he waiting?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I know this is a development meeting, but maybe we should talk a little bit about the fruits of the development in the office hours over the last 3 weeks. We've had a live demonstration of using the D Drupal to Backdrop module. With a lot of help from people around, and Vicky was the one whose site it was, and I mean, it's not recorded, but it was very exciting to see how that all came together. So, you know, Wilbur, Justin, Tim, and others were around. It was like each week, kind of Vicky kept coming back. Okay, we're next step. I'm waiting. It was exciting. It was really good.
So actually, I was barely there. So, but in synopsis, she basically showed up, right, trying to upgrade her site herself. And over the course of 3 weeks, the office hours team helped her do the upgrade, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, I think she didn't know where to go. She'd gone, you know, she was kind of trying to wonder, do I have to go to WordPress? Do I have to do what? You know, and then she came back around to Backdrop. She'd heard about it before, but she didn't know where to find people to talk to. And then she saw the link to the office hours and she came and said, "Can I talk here?"
That's the perfect place. She landed right where she was supposed to.
Yeah, she was quite tickled by it all.
I'm tickled by it all. So is her site now converted to Backdrop and is running production Backdrop?
No, it's not totally. She has like 5 or 6 modules that she needs ported.
But she did a successful database upgrade.
Yeah,
right?
she did a successful database conversion and all her content's there. So
Yeah, and we also found out that during the process of the D to B, it goes and grabs the modules that your database from Drupal 7 tells you you're using, and it tries to grab the equivalent modules from Backdrop, and it does, except for some. And then what we found was if you didn't mind taking out the what do you call it, the programming kind of style, you could actually, it's not that big a deal, you know, but you could actually download the release the tagged release of the module from the backdrop site and get it into place. And as long as it was the release one that had the .info file with the actual version number of that module, and then just tell it to run again, it would automatically enable them. So that was one of the little pearls that we learned from those sessions.
Yeah, I think the two modules in question that didn't go get were Entity Plus and Entity UI, which are like new dependencies in the backdrop versions of a bunch of modules, and yeah, it just
Oh
didn't go
yeah,
get those.
yeah. That's probably the case where if there's a 777 module and it's like, oh, let me go get the equivalent backdrop module, but then it doesn't look at the backdrop modules .info files to find all of the new dependencies there might be. So those modules didn't exist in Drupal 7. They only exist in backdrop. And so that dependency chain doesn't automatically get discovered.
Mhm.
Yeah. There's probably, because those two modules that you mentioned, Joseph, are, I bet, by far, like 90% plus the most
I think
likely modules to be necessary. I wonder if it would be worth just building in an exception to those in D2B and just be like, if you have any of these modules, also you probably need this, or do an automatic rename where it's like if you need it, if you had entity module or entity API as it was called in Drupal 7, you probably need entity plus, and just go ahead and assume that to be the case.
yeah.
Would that be,
I think Entity Plus is our most installed contrib module.
We thought the site was broken though, and it wasn't broken because the Drupal 7 site was both the admin theme and the default theme were set to a custom theme. So we couldn't get to the site because the admin theme was set to a theme that didn't exist.
That's another little thing that D2B could probably handle, where it's
Right.
like, if the theme doesn't exist, like
Yep.
set it to the default one, and
Right.
then that's better than nothing.
well, it might need to go to the default that might have existed in D7, like Bartik, rather than basis, but I don't know. What I did want to ask is, should Entity Plus and Entity UI become candidates for core?
It's a it's a good question. Yeah, actually, let's.
Quick answer, Nate. 5 minutes, 5 words or less.
So kind of yes and kind of no. So what Entity Plus does, my understanding, is that it provides its main feature that it has is the same thing the Entity API module did in Drupal 7, which is it adds an entity wrapper that wraps around other types of entities like nodes and users. And it makes it so that you can do chaining. So like if you have you put a wrapper around a node and then you say wrapper arrow field my reference, and then you can do another arrow off of that one, and then you can chain together, drilling down your fields and references to get certain values back.
Like you could do node author full name
Yeah, thank you. That's a great example.
and just print the author's full name.
Yeah, and so the kind of challenge we have with it is that these wrappers, if they were start to be used throughout core, you'd probably end up with scenarios where instead of passing the nodes around, you would be passing the wrappers around instead. And so our APIs would potentially start to become inconsistent, where sometimes you're getting a wrapper and sometimes you're getting an entity object without the wrapper. And so I was like, well, wouldn't one of the solutions then be to make it so that the wrapper functionality was built into the main entities like node and user, and then you could just treat those in a new way. It's a possibility, but it does make those entity objects a lot more complicated. Right now, we're avoiding almost entirely any kind of magic methods. Magic methods are when you call a property on an object, but instead of accessing a real property, it calls a method that then dynamically populates the value of that property with something that is actually being returned by a method and not returned by a property. So it makes like debugging a particular object a lot more difficult if you're kind of fabricating the names of properties and instead returning values from the magic method of a underscore underscore get is the name of the magic method. So I don't know. It's complicated. It would be a big API shift, a really big one, if we started incorporating either approach, either magic methods to make it so that normal entities started acting like entity wrappers, or if we introduced entity wrappers directly, then I think that would be an even messier solution. What I've always kind of hoped that we could do is instead of trying to emulate entity wrappers, that we could make existing entities work a lot easier, and especially in regards to references. So like we could add a new method, for example, that is something like, I don't know, get reference, for example. And you might say like node arrow get reference author, and then you could chain off of that. Then you could do arrow off of that, and make it so that you could do the chaining type functionality, but give it a dedicated method called get reference instead of the get value thing we have right now, which is only going to return the entity ID. You could do get reference and it would do the auto loading and the chaining for you. And then we would have CORS API, which hopefully, if it was convenient enough, would be able to supplant usage of Entity Plus, and then Entity Plus would stop being used quite so widely by Contrib if Core provided a better API that was easier to use. That's my hope for how we could potentially resolve the weird. There's Core's API and then there's Entity Plus's API.
I think that something this is probably a 2.x feature, but something I've really wanted for a long time is making it into like a proper ORM type system where you
A proper what system? Sorry, I think it cut out there.
I think ORM. I don't remember if that's the correct, but like because we have hook entity info, hook entity property info, hook metadata property info for the metadata wrappers, and then we have hook schema, and then we define all these properties on the actual entity class themselves. So it's like we have a huge amount of duplication in this whole process that I don't know. I feel like we could, if we made it a lot easier to create a custom entity and I don't know, had safe defaults for a lot of these systems, then we could massively simplify a lot of modules that are providing custom data types.
Yeah, you're right. That would be a big change, but it's possible. Yeah, to have less. Yeah, like if hook entity info. Well, actually, I don't know. Hook entity info could probably provide most of that stuff. Right now, you have to manually create the matching database tables, for your entity, and it's really that's kind of an unnecessary complexity. We could derive all of that information from hook entity info instead.
Right. Or we could do entity property info as well, and just reduce it to 2 hooks instead of like 6.
Yeah. Do we have, is that something we have right now? Or are you just saying
Yeah.
that's a hypothetical?
No, I think that's an actual hook that you can implement.
Oh.
You can also implement field custom fields. You have to implement field custom fields to make your entity properties show up in the field UI.
What's that hook?
So
Hook entity property? Or
Isn't
So
it?
Nate, you're late for your next meeting.
Oh, I am. All right. Yeah, sorry.
I'm
All
I'm
right.
excited for a success story when Vicky gets her things running. So let's do that. But I think we're probably at the end of our time.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Sorry, it's always goes this way. We get into something engaging and then we're out of time. But thank you, everybody, for being here this week. Really excellent discussion. yeah, there's a couple of interesting issues that have been flagged that I'm looking forward to analyzing. So that's great. Any last thoughts or anything before we close? Okay. All right. Well,
Backdrop
thanks.
Live, sign up.
Yep. Me too. I need to sign up. All right. All right. Thank you, everybody.